Hello and welcome back to the finals of the World Championship in Through the Ages. After the first two four-player games, I'm at the moment at 2 points in the standings because I finished two times at the third place, which is definitely not ideal, but there are still 6 games left for me to be able to catch up some points. And the first game that we are taking a look at today is a three-player game against Marta Pecheur and E5. And as you can see, those are the two opponents that are that have the best positions in the standings at the moment, meaning that if I should win this game, it could be a really important step to get closer to them and to keep good chances for me alive to win the title. And now, without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game, I'm playing in the first position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there is no Bill Gates, but there is Sid Meier and Steve Jobs, also Marie Curie for some lab synergy, there's also the space flight and the Manhattan Project. We have some theater leaders with Chaplin and Marlene Dietrich, there is however no internet, no Hollywood. Then we also have Gandhi to potentially hide behind, we have Pierre, who is a very interesting leader, and also the Red Cross is there. Then we have the ocean liner service, the Harvard College, the railroads, so some strong economical wonders. We have Bach, Shakespeare, so some strong culture leaders. James Cook, but no Suez Canal. James Watt is there, also Newton, and then Catherine and Maximilian Robespierre as military action leaders. In H1 we also have two military action leaders with Joan of Arc and Shishka. There's also Gutenberg there for some lab and printing press synergy, Isabella, Eleanor, also Barbarossa can work nicely for a colonization game, but there's of course no Suez Canal in the game. We also have Columbus, and then as wonders we have the Great Wall, but no Himeji Castle. There is Universitas and the Silk Road there, there's the Machu Picchu and the Taj Mahal. I'm in first position, and now I think it is probably best for me to pick one of those leaders available. It could happen that maybe both of my opponents could end up taking Rome, Rhodes, and Library, but then the pyramids would be available. Those would be available for two civil actions, but it would not be too bad. However, I thought it should be quite likely that one of my opponents will go for Hammurabi, and in this case, even one of those wonders should be available for one civil action, which is especially important because for Cleopatra, which at the end ended up being my choice for the leader, I think both Rome, Rhodes, and Library are maybe a little bit better to work with than the pyramids, especially of course if they are available for one civil action cheaper. So I was hoping here that Hammurabi will be taken by one of my opponents, and that then I will be either able to go for Library or Rome Rhodes with Cleopatra, and with that hope I ended up going for Cleopatra because I think she can generate some nice economical value. However, Sun Tzu definitely also could have been a very fine choice. I'm playing in first position, maybe one of my opponents will go for Hammurabi, and if one of my opponents doesn't go for Hammurabi because I have taken Sun Tzu, that's also perfectly fine for me, of course. And then I can maybe put a little bit of pressure on my opponents. There's Columbus, there's Shishka, so I think that could also be a very valid choice. There's no Suez Canal, and very likely I will be able to get an economical wonder, so maybe I then rather would just like to focus on building up some economy, but I think that could work quite well. At the end I just rather wanted to go for Clio, but I think Sun Tzu could also be a very fine choice here. E5 will then indeed go for Hammurabi, meaning that either Rome, Rhodes, or Library will be available for me next turn. And Marta Pecheur will go for Sun Tzu. I think he likes Sun Tzu quite a bit. He's playing last position, which is maybe not ideal, but can maybe still generate some nice knowledge about the event deck. And then he also takes the Library away. Now it is my turn. I will go for Clio. I could of course take the pyramids for two civil actions, that would also take them away from e5, but e5 has already Hammurabi. With that, maybe the additional civil action from the pyramids is not that important. On the other hand, if he manages to do a nice revolution with Hammurabi, the pyramids could come in even more handy. So yeah, it could be an idea, but I think with Clio it just maybe doesn't work as nicely as maybe the Rome Rhodes does. It's a bit more easy to get some nice value out of her. There's a higher chance that maybe if I now go for building the second lab, which I will do, that maybe with some additional resources I will be able to build a step of the Rome Rhodes and a mine at the next turn potentially, and it's just available for one civil action cheaper, and so I ended up going for the Rome Rhodes. Build the second lab to use Clio's resource. I don't want to start building the Rome Roads. I rather want to get this lab going, get the science production going, and the next turn maybe I have a chance if I draw an event that I can see that I can build a mine and a step, and if not I can have to see what is in the row, if I maybe want to stop using Clio for one turn, or if I just want to start building the Rome Roads and then build my mine at one turn later. Then I draw two cards. I don't draw an event, however, I draw something else that is very nice, the Open Borders Agreement, so I will be able to get an additional military action very early, which is quite nice. e5 goes for Hammurabi, goes for the pyramids. He could have also waited for the Silk Road, but the pyramids is of course also a very fine choice. Yeah, but the Silk Road maybe also could have been interesting. Maybe he could have even grabbed the iron for 3, but I think the pyramids at the end no, is also a very solid choice. With that, the iron is available for Martin Pêcheur, and he's willing to pay 2 civil actions for it. Starts with building the mine. Elect Sun Tzu has no free population, which is maybe a little bit awkward for him, with maybe wanting to seed with Sun Tzu. But no, getting this early copy of iron is definitely not bad. Now I have to decide which of my opponents I want to offer the open borders agreement to, and I ended up offering it to Martin Pêcheur, which could end up being a little bit dangerous for myself, because he has Sun Tzu, maybe wants to go for some military, but I just really didn't want to give e5 the additional military action with having Hammurabi. I want him to have some problems so that he doesn't get too much value out of Hammurabi, or maybe at least has some issues because of having him. And while Martin Pêcheur has Sun Tzu, he has also taken this early iron and probably wants to invest into it, and with investing the 5 signs into the iron, maybe it will be difficult for him to also go for a lot of military strength in the near future, and with that I was hoping that I won't be in any big danger with offering this pack to him. Then, as you can see, this turn I built 1 step of the Rome roads instead of building the mine, and no, that is because I wanted to take a specific card from the road. There is an early copy of Code of Laws, which I could potentially take. However, here I ended up taking the second copy of Iron for 3 civil actions, which is definitely expensive, especially with having a 4 civil action wonder like the Rome roads. But on the other hand, I will be able to build an iron mine directly at some point. Maybe not at the next turn, only when I get 2 additional resources from the developments, but at some point I will be able to build an iron mine directly, and with that I will basically save 1 civil action again, making a little bit up for the higher cost that I have paid here. And so I can also at the next turn, for example, start developing it, build 1 upgrade, and then I can also use the resource from Clio to build 1 more step of the Rome roads, which is very nice. I could have also just taken the Code of Laws, 1 civil action cheaper, maybe then build another step of the Rome roads or something. But I think having this copy of Iron is not bad. There are some interesting wonders. Universitas could be interesting to get after I finish the Rome roads. And then there are also some very strong H2 wonders like Ocean Liner Service and Harvard College. And with that I also think maybe for e5 the copy of Iron would be nicer to have. Now he will get the Code of Laws, but he has Pyramids, he has Hammurabi. He doesn't have any additional science generation at the moment, so I think the Code of Laws, while maybe still nice to have, is not that great of a card for him, and the iron maybe would be more interesting to get some production up. And so I ended up taking the iron because I think it's nice for myself with those wonders in the game, but it's also, I think, the more important card to maybe take away from e5. Then I draw 3 cards, thanks to the pact. We'll draw the reds, and also what was the other event, the rebellion. e5 will build the second lab, uses the urban growth, then takes the Code of Laws and the breakthrough. With the breakthrough, at least it gets a bit more, a bit less costly maybe if he wants to develop the Code of Laws soon. Martin Pêcheur seeds, the development of planning is revealed. The options for the development of planning are science, warfare, and markets. Martin Pêcheur chooses the development of science, which makes sense because he wants to maybe go for the iron as quickly as possible. And then he builds 1 step of the library, increases population, takes the reserves, and also takes the rich land. Now I have to choose what I want to get from the development of markets, and for me, of course, the development of science might also be nice, but I ended up taking the development of markets because I think it really gives a bit of a boost to my production. With taking the development of markets, I have now 5 resources, meaning instead of upgrading iron, I can build 1 directly, generating me immediately an additional resource, and then I can also use Clio to build 1 step of the Rome roads. However, if I do this, then I also have to increase my population to get out of corruption. So I think that is a very solid turn. I get my production already going this turn, and if there are no further resources revealed from the development, having built this iron mine directly will also likely generate me again an additional resource at the next turn, so the development of markets might just give me 4 additional resources with this, and with that I was willing to take it over the development of science, even though I often value the science a bit more in the early game than the additional resources. Doing this turn, however, means that I don't take the knights, which of course always can be a bit tricky with playing against Sun Tzu, but at least again Martin Pêcheur will probably go for the iron. Then it will take a little while until he has enough signs for the knights, and also this first copy of knights will likely be taken by e5. Then of course Martin Pêcheur is playing in front of me, meaning maybe he has the better chances to get the second copy, but I just thought getting this economy going is too strong, and after having taken the iron for 3 at the turn before, now spending again a card, 2 civil actions in a card, I think would would maybe just be too costly, and so I was willing to take the risk on potentially missing out on it and then maybe playing without a Sun Tzu tactic. Then I draw some events, or no events, but enable trade agreement, and also the Legion tactic, which could be very nice to have in case I miss out on the knights. E5 indeed is willing to take the knights, develops the code of laws, so he probably took the development of science from the development of planning. He builds also one step of the pyramids and then takes the frugality. Then it's Martin Pêcheur's turn. He seeds and opens the development of agriculture. He has now 6 food lying around, goes for the iron, goes for an upgrade, can go for another upgrade thanks to the rich land A that he still has in hand, and then he will increase his population to get out of corruption. At the next turn he's just enough resources saved up to finish the library, so that looks very nice for him. Also he's interestingly revealing the heavy cavalry tactic, so maybe potentially plans on going for that, or at least wants to have the option. Maybe if he gets Barbarossa he can manage it to build 3 knights, but there's no Genghis Khan, so it's maybe just to potentially keep the Barbarossa option alive. Now it is my turn, and I will finish the Rome roads this turn again using Cleo's resources. And I think it could potentially be quite nice, even though it is costly, because I probably would need to build a warrior, or I would need to build a warrior to get out of corruption. It could be very interesting here, I think, to take the Universitas, just getting another wonder going with my iron production, getting even more science production, just getting a lot of production from my wonders. But it is, of course, a bit costly. I would have to build this warrior, I would have to delay one iron upgrade. And so at the end I made a decision against this play, also because I think there are some other interesting wonders, and if I leave my wonder slot open, I maybe will be possible for me to take one of those strong H2 wonders a little bit more easily in H2, or maybe the Great Wall could also still be available for me at the next turn, and in case things get a little bit dangerous with Sun Tzu being the game and maybe also Jan Žižka being taken, then having the chance to take the Great Wall could also end up being quite important. And with that I was not willing to go for the Universitas, but if I could do this turn without having to commit to a warrior, maybe I already would go for it, and maybe it could still be strong enough to just go for it, just getting a lot of production just from the wonders. But there's another way how I can also increase my science production, and that is after having gone for this upgrade to go for a copy of alchemy. So that also allows me to again use Cleo's resource at the next turn, will also increase my science production. I definitely think it's not as strong as going for the Universitas, because it requires some science investment, and I don't leave myself open for further upgrades. If I go for Universitas, I can completely escalate with my science production with going for the scientific method. On top of that, in H2, for example. But now with the alchemy that's not possible, but it will still be nice. With the Rome roads I will be at 5 science production in H2, which is quite strong. And again, it also allows me to use Cleo's resources, and I can get out of corruption. Thanks to the yellow token from Rome roads, I'm still not in consumption, have a free population, so those things I think are all very nice for me. I keep the Legion tactic and those 2 events in hand, and also then I draw the Raiders in the Dark Ages, also the Phalanx tactic, so I have now a Knights tactic in case I should get the Knights. E5 will finish the pyramids, has now a lot of civil actions that he can use, and he makes the decision to go for Jan Žižka, which I think makes lots of sense with Martin Pêcheur having Sun Tzu, and especially of course if he has a tactic available, Jan Žižka could end up being quite strong for him, also with the additional military action now that he knows that he doesn't have the open borders agreement. Martin Pêcheur seeds and opens the development of religion. He will be able to take it, will be able to finish the library, and he will actually go for the Rome at a Great Wall, which is interesting. Has maybe also an infantry tactic in hand that he wants to use. Maybe doesn't want to hope to get knights, and the Great Wall is of course a wonder that has quite some potential. He has some strong iron production, so I think it definitely makes some sense, and also takes an option away from me to maybe stabilize my military. So no, I think that definitely makes sense going for this Great Wall. And he indeed has a tactic, reveals the fighting band, meaning that maybe I won't get punished for missing out on the knights, as maybe this tactic will be the one that gets upgraded, especially now that Martin Pêcheur has committed to the Great Wall. Then this turn I will go for the alchemy, allowing me to use Cleo's resource. I will go for an upgrade. Then in order to at the end of the turn get out of corruption, I have to actually increase my population anyway. And then the question was, which upgrade do I want to go for with my last civil action, because there's no card that is important enough to maybe just build a warrior and get out of corruption now. I think I should just rather go for one more upgrade to my economy. And of course, maybe the more intuitive thing would be to just upgrade the iron production, because then that would allow me to again use Clio's resource at the next turn to go for the second upgrade of the alchemy, just making sure that I can use Clio every turn, getting a lot of value out of her. But I think in this situation it might actually be the wrong choice, because while of course it would generate me probably more value if I go for the iron production now, I get one more resource production and can use Clio's resource at the next turn again, basically generating me 2 additional resources. If I go for the upgrade of the alchemy now, I just get 1 additional science, but I think in this situation, having at the moment a Rome roads only 4 civil actions, so maybe it's being a maybe it will be a bit of a struggle to use my resource anyway, and with being on relatively low science, I just think at this point the 1 science is more important than the 2 additional resources, and even though it might mean that I can't use Clio at the next turn, I thought that this is more important to go for the second upgrade of alchemy this turn. And bringing me to 4 science production. Meaning that in 2 turns I could for example have 12 science available and could be prepared for an H2 government form relatively quickly. E5 plays the reserves resources, takes the alchemy, and with that can go for 2 upgrades, also goes up to 4 science production, takes the engineering genius, so he makes a nice use out of his many civil actions, doesn't go for Janshishka yet, the event deck hasn't flipped and no player is looking very threatening. Matapeshur seeds, the development of civil life is revealed, he will use it to increase his population, builds a warrior, takes the swordsman, plays the resources, and again builds a warrior. Now a player is starting to look quite threatening. Matapeshur is now at 7 strength, and of course now I and E5 have to see how we can react to this and hopefully avoid getting hit by an aggression that probably Matapeshur has in hand with committing that heavily to the warriors this turn. And this turn I seed, and what event was it? Probably either Rebellion or Rats. Which event was it? I think it was the Rats, the event. And so I seed this into the deck, and the event revealed is the development of politics. That seeding this at least gives me a little bit of knowledge about the event deck, and also I will get stronger, and I will get as strong that I hope that E5, now with knowing what development was revealed, won't be able to overtake me in strength, even if he has the perfect tactic for Janshishka. First of all, of course, I definitely want to make sure that I don't get hit by an aggression, and I can do this with building 2 warriors, revealing the Legion tactic, being at 5 strength. Now, even without further help, I would be able to defend myself, even with the open borders agreement ongoing. And then this turn is of course also the question, what leader do I want to go for? There are 3 leaders in a row, there would also be 2 that I could wait for, but now I get a civil action back, and so I think it's probably nice to just take a leader right now. There is Isabella available for 1 civil action, she could just generate me a little bit more resources, maybe could potentially help me to win some colonies. But I think I have to be a bit careful here, because Matapeshur has upgraded a fighting band tactic, his swordsman in hand, will soon be able to finish the Great Wall. And with this, maybe not in the next turn, but soon it could get quite threatening from what amount of strength he can muster. And E5, while he doesn't have a tactic yet, if he has a tactic like Phalanx or the medieval army, or maybe just at some point copies the upgraded fighting band tactic, Janshishka definitely also has the potential to get quite threatening. And so with that in mind, I made a decision to just go for Joan of Arc, get the additional military action, get the additional strength thanks to having the religion. Also, of course, the knowledge about the event deck is quite nice to have. I will elect her, and then with the last 2 civil actions, I will increase my population because I have just seeded the rats into the deck, and then I also will go for an upgrade to iron, being now at 7 resource production, and at the next turn, or maybe there could still be an age 1 turn, but if the age should end before my next turn, then of course I will beat back to 6 resource production, because the Rome roads will switch to science production. Now I'm at 6 strength, and even if E5 has maybe the medieval army tactic for Janshishka, I can only go up to 5 strength unless there's something like new deposits revealed, meaning that hopefully I am not the weakest right now, and also won't be it after E5's turn. That was another reason for me to seed. First of all, the rats could of course be quite punishing in case E5 makes the decision to seed, and also it means that if Matapeshur pushes it his turn, I'm maybe in a position where I'm not the weakest, while who knows, if he has a medieval army tactic, it could soon be that he maybe then goes for another knight, and it could get a little bit difficult for me to actually not be the weakest, and then it could be nice to now have a chance to maybe get already a strength event out while I'm not the weakest. I I keep some events in the phalanx tactic in hand, and I will draw another colonization card, which could be nice in case there are some colonies coming. e5 will use the development of civil life to develop the knights, will then go for Yanshiska. Doesn't use the civil action when electing Yanshushkas, or doesn't use the military action of Hammurabi, rather wants to get maybe some additional draws, or doesn't have any use for the additional civil action. And as you can see, he indeed has the medieval army tactic, takes the swordsman away, so I won't be able to upgrade my warriors, but at least for now he is only at 5 strength. And he indeed will actually get punished immediately. I was happy to see that this event is out. While I am not the weakest, the uncertain borders is revealed. Matapeshur will get an additional yellow token, which is quite strong for him in e5. For him it is quite annoying, because without the yellow token loss he could have just gone for another knight at the next turn, maybe stabilizing in strength, but now when the age will end he has some unhappy phase issues, and with that won't be that easily able to increase his strength further, maybe staying the weakest, and then who knows, maybe even getting further punished by the event deck. Matapeshur will go for Columbus. He had a lot of draws with Sun Tzu, so there's a good chance that he maybe has a nice colony available, and then he will start going for Swordsman, goes for 2 upgrades, putting him at 10 strength, making me again look quite threatening, and he has just enough resources to finish the Great Wall at the next turn, which would put him at 14 strength then. I have Joan of Arc now, so I can see the top event of the deck, and the top event are actually the reds. But first of all, H2 will start, so I could of course potentially think about seeding, maybe making it that especially Matapeshur will lose 3 food, but it's also not the most important. For me the situation with the reds doesn't change really at the moment, and so at the end I rather didn't want to push, because for the pestilence I'm not that nicely prepared, especially because I will use the free population at the moment, and I also didn't really want to push the historic territory, even though with having 2 colonization cards that maybe could be somewhat reasonable to push. Then it is my turn. I have 4 civil actions, and it's a bit of a question what useful stuff I can do, but I think at the end there is maybe a relatively clear solution, because of course I could just take a lot of those H1 yellow cards, and it's not bad to get a breakthrough, cultural heritage and so on, but especially with being only on 4 civil actions, I think I have to be very careful on how I use my civil actions, and I think it would be nicer to use it on something that will actually help me throughout the next turns. And with that I ended up going for the theology, which feels a bit awkward, because Bread and Circus is available for 1 civil action, and there is actually Pierre in the game, but of course at the moment I have Joan of Arc, and also I have a free religion, meaning that upgrading to the theology makes it that I have actually 1 more free population that I can use, and that could actually be quite valuable, because after putting this into the warriors, it means that at the next turn, when I can copy the upgraded Sun Tzu tactic, I will get another boost from 2 strength, putting me up to 10, and maybe again hopefully making it that I won't be the weakest at least, and hopefully will be able to defend against an aggression, even when Matapeshur goes up to 14 strength, because if I go up to 10 strength and he's at 14, then with the Open Borders Agreement he's basically at 16, with the 2 H1 colonization cards that's just enough for me to not be in danger of an aggression. So I think that going for the theology, also getting of course the additional strength from it with Joan of Arc, just makes a lot of sense. It's not ideal, because now I'm missing 1 science to go for the common in case that government form should be available for me at the next turn. I don't get any of those yellow cards. It would be nice to maybe at least get a breakthrough, but I'm only in 4 civil actions, and so I just think I kind of have to do this. I can't just take the theology in hand and then take the breakthrough. I think there could be interesting cards. There could be something like Ocean Liner Service, Harvard College Railroad in the row at the next turn, and then it could be awkward to not have already gone for this theology upgrade. So I just have to be efficient with my civil actions here, and sadly have to miss out on those yellow cards. I keep the events in hand, draw some cards. The Scientific Corporation, of course, could potentially be interesting, even though at the moment I'm very low in civil action. There is actually the first government form being revealed, so I could potentially get punished for sadly not having enough science to develop it, but of course the opponents might also go for it, and in e5 indeed will end up going for it. He now went for the Bread and Circuses, making sure that he is not in danger of getting hit by Rebellion, which he doesn't have knowledge about, because I had drawn this event earlier, so he makes sure to be prepared for that. And also he sets up nicely for a revolution. He goes up to 6 strength. He can't really do a lot more without destruction this turn, but at the next turn he will be able to do revolution. Now has now free population thanks to having gone to the Bread and Circuses, and can go for another knight. However, that will only put him at 10 strength, and with me going up to 10 strength as well, he then again would be the weakest after his turn. Matapeshare, let's see if he wants to seed or if he will use Columbus, and he will indeed use Columbus, gets the inhabited territory, doesn't want to wait for a potential H2 colony draw, goes for the masonry, finishes the Great Wall, is now at 14 strength, and then takes the rich land to at the next turn maybe cheaply upgrade his last mine to iron. Now it is my turn, and I again see the reds on top with Joan of Arc, and this turn I actually seeded the international negotiations into the deck. It's maybe not really necessary to push, but I think it could potentially be nice. Matapeshare has no fault food saved up, and in case he doesn't see it, which is maybe unlikely, it was just nice to make sure that he will lose those 4 food before he will increase his population at his turn. And also I will go for a turn where maybe we'll have some hope to actually win the international negotiations when it will be revealed later on, because what I will do this turn is to go for the railroad, and with copying the tactic, having the railroad, I will already be at 15 strength, and so I thought it's maybe not too bad, get a bit of knowledge about the next event deck, get some cards for seeding, make sure that the reds are revealed. Those were at the end enough reasons for me to push, and then the reds are revealed and Matapeshare will lose the most food. I will go for the railroad. There is also a copy of Rifleman on the row, and I thought that could also be very important to have. I have a lot of warriors and will upgrade to the fighting band tactic, so if I just go for some Rifleman, that also could leave me at a very nice amount of strength, and I could just take and develop the Rifleman, go for some upgrades. That would not be bad, but it has some issues, because after investing the 6 science into it, I don't have enough to go for a government form at the next turn, and also it is quite costly. I mean, taking the railroad of course also is quite costly, but it does also give me some strength and some economical benefits at the same time, allows maybe the potential for a strong oil play in H3 if there's an early copy available. Of course I block myself from the ocean liner service, but I don't know if I have a nice chance to take that one anyway. And also I was actually hoping that maybe there is a chance that I can get a Rifleman still at the next turn, because while it might also be an important card for my opponents, E5 has at least the swordsman in hand, Matapeshare has the swordsman developed, and especially E5 is nicely set up to do a revolution, and so I expected him to maybe just stick to this plan. Don't take the Rifleman. Matapeshare doesn't have the most civil actions, doesn't have the most hand space, so taking the Rifleman when already having the swordsman could really not be that ideal for him. Maybe he also wants to go for the Harvard College with him not be having the most science production at the moment, and then there is actually a chance to get a Rifleman for cheaper, and with that I was not really willing to pay 3 civil actions for them and also block myself from a potential government form, and instead rather wanted to go for the railroad. And then I just built 1 step to be civil action efficient. I think that's now even more important after having gone for a wonder that requires again a lot of civil actions, and then the next turn I can finish it and maybe even have the chance to take a government form, develop it and still finish it, especially if it is the Republic. For the common that would not be possible if it is available for 3, but otherwise it would be possible. And so I was hoping that maybe at the next turn I can just finish the railroad, then again make sure that I get more strength, maybe even be prepared for some nice strength events that are coming, and then maybe also having a chance to win the international negotiations, especially if I should maybe get a Rifleman on top of the railroad. And of course I want to upgrade to a fighting band, going up to 10 strength. I draw some cards, the immigration and the popularization of science. E5 will indeed do the revolution, increasing my chances to maybe get a Rifleman at my turn, and then he will also build a knight, also going up to 10 strength. And now let's see if Matapeshare will push. And he actually doesn't push, meaning that pushing out the reds maybe did do something nice for me at the end. Matapeshare has 16 thanks to the open borders agreement, but I have just the 2 H1 colonization cards that I need to defend myself. And then Matapeshare gets the second H2 government form, doesn't go for the Harvard College, that would be a nice wonder for him, but it would be quite costly, and he's just lacking 1 resource to just finish it in the next turn, so just maybe setting up a revolution for Republic, or setting himself up for potential Robespierre, who is in the game, could be quite strong. So he takes the Republic and then just builds an additional swordsman, making sure that he stays the strongest even when I finish the railroad, which could be an indicator that there are more strength events coming. And then he is lacking a bit of science at the moment, so he takes the revolutionary idea. Thanks to the library, he still has a free hand space, so he isn't really limiting himself a lot. And that means that the Riflemen indeed are still available for me, and at my turn I will first of all see the popularization of science. When defending against the aggression, I had to think about which cards to keep. I had the immigration that I could keep, and then with having immigration and the popularization of science I would be a bit more flexible on what events I want to push, but in the end I thought the scientific corporation just still has quite a bit of potential, and I wanted to keep it in hand, meaning that I had to decide between what I want to keep, between popularization of science and immigration. It was a close one for me. I was not too happy about both of those events. Both of them look fine now, but I have only the theology at the moment. No, I don't know how nicely I will be able to get more population out. So it could be that maybe in the future, when it takes a while, I have some happy face issues. And for the popularization of science, it also looks fine now, but Martha Pescher might go for scientific method or something. Maybe a player will go for Newton's, or it's maybe not ideal, but at the end I was hoping that the impact of that is maybe not as if I get hit by the immigration, lose the population, it's just a lot worse than maybe if I just have 2 or 3 culture less out of the popularization of science. So I rather wanted to commit to that, and there's at least a chance that I will actually get some nice value out of it. Then this turn, I could just finish the railroad and take the rifleman, which is a very solid turn. There's basically only one real downside for it, and that is that I miss out on the cavalryman. And with that, and with Martha Pescher also having no cavalry tactic, it definitely could be that I miss out on the second copy at some point. So I could instead also think about just taking riflemen, developing them, and then going for one upgrade, maybe taking the cavalryman and build one more step of the railroad. That also could be a very solid turn. But at the end, I thought that I don't have a cavalry tactic at the moment. I don't get free populations. The cavalryman is really only for the later turns, when I maybe have drawn a tactic in a way to get more population going. And who knows, maybe I will draw a tactic where I don't need a cavalryman at all. And also with having the railroad, the upgraded fighting band tactic, and the rifleman, I actually will be able to go for a very solid amount of strength without any further tactic for quite a while. And so I was willing at the end to take the risk just in order to get some more economical development going. Maybe also again making myself free, just in case there's maybe an ocean liner service in the 2 civil action area at the next turn. I could just take it and get another very strong wonder gun going. And with that, I at the end first of all seeded, because again I see what it is on top, and Crusades is revealed, so at least I don't get hit by that event. And then I will take the rifleman and just finish the railroad, going up to 8 resource production, also up to 15 strength. And also, of course, which makes it even more obvious maybe to go for the railroad, is that actually is the best way for me to make sure that I don't get hit by an aggression, because if I go for Rifleman, for example, even for 3 upgrades, I would be at 16 strength, but I would have only drawn 1 more card, and then with thanks to the Open Borders Agreement, Martha Pescher would be 3 strength ahead of me. I have only 2 cards in hand, so he could go for an aggression. Now I am 4 strength behind him, but I have actually 4 cards in hand, so I can defend against an aggression, and with that I think it's even more clear that I basically have to finish the railroad and can't just go for some rifleman upgrades. E5 seeds, and a border conflict is revealed, so another strength event. So Martha Pescher has in the end definitely gotten some nice value out of Sun Tzu, has pushed a lot of events, has pushed a lot of strength events, was at the end able to prepare for them with going for the upgraded fighting band and the Great Wall, and now gets a lot of benefits out of those events. E5 hasn't upgraded his farms and mines yet, so James Ward is of course a very nice choice as a leader. Leaves him maybe a little bit vulnerable with now not having Jan Žižka any longer, but he just wants to get some economy going and maybe has some defense cards so that he can defend at least against one aggression, or is maybe actually just willing to take some risks, reveals the Hussars tactic, and now if he has an H1 and an H2 colonization card, it would be enough for him to defend against Martha Pescher. But he doesn't go for an aggression, instead he seeds, and the foray is revealed, which I was of course happy to see, so at least I'm also now participating on those nice events in the deck. And Martha Pescher has the opportunity this turn to go for Robespierre, getting into Republic very cheaply without having to do a normal revolution. Still a bit of an interesting choice to go for Robespierre, because he could have maybe also just done a normal revolution, but of course now he can do a revolution, has still 3 civil actions left, so that is still quite a bit of value, and maybe the other leaders also don't really work that nicely for him. He has now at least also the additional military action, so I think at the end it is the decision that makes probably the most sense. Goes for one more iron upgrade and then takes the breakthrough, so he again gets some nice value out of his civil actions, gets out of corruption, gets an upgrade going, and a breakthrough for only 1 civil action. This turn again I think the prosperity into the deck, the cultural influence is revealed, and that doesn't change too much for the culture rating. Then it's my turn again, and I, as you can see, took just 3 resource from the fray. I could of course take 3 food. The food might at some point be more valuable for me, but at the moment it is just lying around, and so I rather wanted to just stay on 0 food because it makes it a lot easier for me to get out of corruption. And in order to get out of corruption, I will go for at least 1 rifleman upgrade, also making sure out of the 4th military action that I have, going up to 17 strength. Could go for even more strength, but a lot of strength events are already out, so I think there's not really any reason to do this and miss out on a draw, because it could be quite nice to maybe draw a tactic that I can potentially use. I have the Conquistadors, but that's not really ideal. And then the question is what to do with my remaining 3 civil actions. And there are some cards that could potentially be worth it to take for 3. There are both copies of cannons. If I don't take a copy of cannon now, it could be that I miss out on them, and then there's still no copy of cavalryman, so I could also potentially miss out on that, and then I would be stuck on just being on rifleman, which definitely could cause some issues at some point. And also there's a copy of selective breeding in the row. Both of my opponents have no selective breeding. There's of course the ocean liner service, but as long as I don't get a government farm, that is not that easy for me to take. And I could potentially miss out on the selective breeding, so I could just take the selective breeding, could just take the cannons. I think the selective breeding was the card that I considered more to take. But that also would just feel a little bit bad, investing that many civil actions into that with being quite low in civil actions, just making sure that I get the selective breeding. Maybe it could be worth it, maybe it could be the safer play. But at the end I went for something different, which I thought is maybe a bit of a nice use out of for my resources that I'm having, maybe puts myself into a bit of a stronger position, and that is actually to go for the Eiffel Tower. Which is maybe normally not my favorite wonder, but I think in this situation definitely is not that bad to have, because I have only the theology as a happy face solution, so getting 1 more from the wonder will actually be quite helpful for me, especially if I should not be able to get an additional population out before the age will end. Then the happy face will actually be very important to have, and also the culture production, especially when also the Rome roads will switch to culture production, will be quite nice. I will just generate 6 culture just from my wonders, and maybe then generate a little bit of a culture lead, or at least not fall behind too much to Marta Pecheur, who is at the moment in the culture lead. And it just gives me a nice way to invest my resource. If I don't take the Eiffel Tower, there's only the ocean liner service left, which is of course a nice wonder to take, but the problem is I have at the moment only 4 civil actions. I can't take it if it is on 5, and it would still be quite costly if it is on 4, because I can't do anything else. And both E5 and Marta Pecheur have now a lot of civil actions. E5 has the engineering genius that he still wants to use. Marta Pecheur has the masonry, which works nicely with the ocean liner service. So if the ocean liner is available for one of them, then they probably might just take it, and then there's no H2 wonder left for me to invest my many resources that I have into. So maybe it could be fine to just take the selective breeding. That's a risk to not take it, but I at the end just wanted to have something to invest my resources into, and thought that the happy face actually might also be quite helpful for me. I miss out on Newton with that, who maybe could be an interesting leader for me to have, but it's also not the strongest one, and I thought in case I will get a Republic, Catherine could still be quite interesting, and maybe also just going for Bach and Opera or something could still be an interesting option, even though the first copy of Opera sadly will be gone after this turn. I draw 3 cards this turn, a colonization card, wealthy territory, and ravages of time. Sadly no tactic that I can use. E5 plays to reserves resources, goes for 2 upgrades, thanks to the efficient upgrade that he has, now 9 science resource production, takes the selective breeding. With having James Watt, that of course makes a lot of sense, and then he also takes the cannons and the rifleman. Now it's Marta Pecheur's turn. He will now try an aggression against E5, but E5 has the H1 and H2 colonization card in order to defend. And then Marta Pecheur will go for the scientific method, plays the revolutionary idea, takes the cannons, and then develops the scientific method, can build a lab directly, takes the opera, goes for another upgrade, and is now at a very nice amount of science production. And in general his position looks quite nice. He has at the moment a culture lead, has a very nice amount of civil and military actions, has no strong science production. He's basically only needing a food solution that then would probably also be quite strong with the additional yellow tokens that he has from the inhabited territory. And then he just looks very solid, is still at a very nice amount of strength, so I was a bit worried, but maybe if I now at least can go for the conman, which I was not too happy about, I was of course happy about it, but the Republic with maybe now going for Catherine because the second copy of Opera will stay on 2 for me, and it can't just grab the Opera. I think it will be too costly at my turn, so I will go for Catherine, and then maybe I would have preferred the Republic, but at least maybe it leaves me with a bit more military potential when I go for Catherine plus Conmon. And no, that was the turn of Martin Pêcheur with going for the science production. Sadly, now he's a bit better prepared for the popularization of science that is coming at some point. And I this turn could potentially seed. The event on top is the new deposits, but that event could potentially make it a bit difficult for me to get out of corruption. And also, I just thought a scientific method, a scientific corporation could now be a nice time to offer it and maybe get some benefits out of it. I will go for the Conmon this turn, have a nice amount of science saved up. E5 doesn't have that much science, but there's a lot of cheap technologies that he can go for, so for him it might actually also generate a nice amount of value, but I was hoping that I also will get my fair share out of it. And of course I will go for the Conmon this turn, leaving me after developing it at 4 civil actions. And then there's again the decision to make, again a selective breeding on 3 available, and there's actually also the ocean liner service coming down the row. That I of course now can't take with having committed to the Eiffel Tower, but even with not having committed I would not have enough civil actions to take it from the 3 civil actions area this turn. And basically the decision for me was between, I could maybe also do this, there's maybe also a third option that I didn't consider that much during the game, but the main options that I consider were to take Catherine and then either just finish the Eiffel Tower, playing its civil action effectively, maybe with that needing to hope that there's mechanized agriculture available early, because the selective breeding and ocean liner service both very likely will be taken, or the other option would be to just take the selective breeding. Another option could maybe be to take Catherine, go for the justice system now that I have the scientific cooperation pack, going up to 7 civil actions, which could be quite nice, and then getting out of corruption with going for some upgrades in general. If I take the selective breeding for 3, my plan to get out of corruption is with going for a lot of those upgrades to Rifleman. And yeah, I think at the end it's maybe now just mandatory to take the selective breeding, because being stuck without any additional population could just be very annoying for me, and now there is at least a chance that Martin Pêcheur will actually be stuck without population, so that is another important point in order to take the selective breeding, because E5 has still this Engineering Genius 1, the Ocean Liner service will drop down to 2 civil actions, or to the 2 civil action area to him, and if he takes it away, Martin Pêcheur, he then needs to hope for mechanized agriculture to be revealed, otherwise he will be stuck without a lot of population, which could be annoying for him. And so I think here I kinda have to take the selective breeding. It will delay my Eiffel Tower for another turn, but at least even when I go for a lot of upgrades now, thanks to the new deposits that are coming, I still know that I can finish the Eiffel Tower and go for 2 selective breeding upgrades at the next turn. That would require all of my civil actions, but maybe there is nothing really important to do in addition to that. Maybe of course to take the cavalryman, but apart from that, maybe I can just do this at my next turn. And yeah, and so at the end I went for the selective breeding, and at least that means that I also will develop another technology, making the scientific cooperation pact a little bit more valuable for me. Here I maybe also made a bit of a mistake, because I offered this pact, and after that, with having some multiple games ongoing, I kind of mixed this game up with another one and thought that I actually have already figured out my turn and played it relatively quickly, and then I actually forgot to really think about if I should elect Catherine or not this turn, because there might be some good reasons actually to elect her. First of all, I will go for all of those upgrades to Rifleman. I think there are arguments for both of the leaders, so it's maybe not the most important thing, but of course I should have definitely still thought about it. Maybe I think electing Catherine is the better choice here, because now I have 2 additional strength thanks to Joan of Arc, and also will be able to see the top event at the next turn. Those are definitely some benefits, especially the additional strength. If I should draw an aggression, could maybe make it more likely that I will be able to use it against E5, but he has already lost some colonization cards, so even without the 2 additional strength, there is maybe still a good chance that I could actually go for something like an aggression against him, unless maybe goes for the strategy, and the 2 additional strength might even be potentially bad for me, because if he feels because of the 2 additional strength more threatened, it could maybe mean that he doesn't go for the ocean liner service, and because he maybe wants to use his actions to make himself safe from an aggression, and that could mean that Mata Bashir will then go for the ocean liner service. So the 2 additional strength are maybe not that important here, especially with me not having an aggression. And with me not really wanting that e5 maybe panics and over-invests into the military. The top event knowledge could of course be nice, but I have actually knowledge about 2 of those events, so it doesn't bring me that much new knowledge. Of course it could be nice to know which of those events is in top at the next turn, but yeah, I think Catherine would just generate me 1 more culture, and in case I don't want to see it, I would have the option to maybe use her ability and steal a yellow token from 1 or 2 opponents. So no, I think I probably should have elected her here and just played my turn a little bit too quickly after the pact got accepted. I will draw 2 cards, sadly no aggression that I now potentially could use with the additional strength from Joan of Arc, but a tactic and another colonization cards, which at least could be nice. e5 will, thankfully, even though I have some additional strength, and even though there is the strategy in a row, which could be a nice way for him to make himself a bit safer, will go for the ocean liner service, increase his population, will build an additional knight, develops the warfare, so maybe the 2 additional strength could now even make a difference potentially in whether he is able to defend or not, but I don't know this, and sadly I also don't have an aggression to punish him. Mata Bashir will offer me the International Trade Agreement Pact. That of course will help him a little bit with the food, but maybe also not that much, and also if I reject it, there's just always the chance that he will offer it to e5 and he will accept it, so of course I kinda have to accept it, and hopefully the additional resources will also be nice for me. So yeah, I of course accept this pact, and Mata Bashir will then go for the strategy, which works nicely with his Republic, makes him a bit more threatening, and he will actually go for another swordsman and a strategy, making that he is at 25 strength, remaining the strongest, and maybe also not being in danger of getting a yellow token stolen from Catherine at 1 of the following turns. Also he takes the justice system in hand that he can maybe still develop at the next turn potentially. And now it is my turn. I see 1 last time the top event, but it doesn't change before the last turn. It's still the new deposits, and maybe at the end it wasn't too bad to not have gone for Catherine. She would have generated me 1 additional culture, so it was at the end a mistake, but now I kinda have to push in order to get the new deposits out, because otherwise I can't finish the Eiffel Tower and go for 2 selective breeding upgrades, which is what I want to do, because with the 2 upgrades I can increase my population at the next one, and I don't want to delay the finishing the Eiffel Tower even longer, even though there are some interesting cards like the Breakthrough, but I have a decent amount of science and still have maybe to be a bit careful about my civil actions, and taking a cavalryman for 3 is just something that I cannot do, so I have to cede, and I think I push the inhabited territory, because at least I have some cards. The wealthy territory I don't really need with having that much resource production. Of course the inhabited territory could also help Mata Bashir a lot, but I was at the end willing to take the risk. At least I have some nice military actions, already 2 colonization cards in hand, and with it hopefully some chances to win this, and hopefully it will also take a little bit of a while until it will be revealed, so that it won't be the biggest help for Mata Bashir any longer. New deposits are revealed, giving me an e5 9 additional resources, and with that I have now enough to first of all go for Catherine, go for the selective breeding for 2 upgrades, and finish the Eiffel Tower, going up to 7 culture production. At the next turn it will be at 9 with the Rome Road, so that will maybe make it that I can catch up to Mata Bashir, maybe take the culture lead at some point, and I have now also a very solid economy, especially my resource production is strong, science production and food production maybe not as much, because I've started my food production quite late, and the science production will be reduced when we enter ring IH3, and I will lose 1 from the Rome roads, and also I have only 6 civil actions, so I still have some issues with my position, but it's also not bad, and especially e5 will now maybe fall a little bit behind in culture, and also a bit behind in strength still. And also I was quite happy to see my last H2 draw. It is the defensive army, and if I should be able to get rockets, that could be a really nice tactic to have, maybe offering me some military options, and also hopefully making sure that I can defend myself. e5 seeds, the international negotiations are revealed. I at the end was able to go for a reasonable amount of strength, but Mata Bashir just went for even more, so he's sadly able to win the strength event, getting another strength event. He has already won quite a lot of them in this game, and he will again get 3 additional resources out of this event. And then e5 will go for the selective breeding, goes for an upgrade, another upgrade, gets some food production going. He has already the ocean liner service, but having more population is of course always not bad. And he is a bit behind in culture. A nice way maybe to catch up would be to go for the red cross, so maybe he is also just planning to save up the food. He will take a lot of yellow cards, and then he maybe has the chance to go for the Republic at the Red Cross at some point. Then H3 will start, and Martin Pêcheur seeds, opens one of my events, the popularization of science. Sadly, just at this point H3 started, so I lose the one science production from the Rome roads. So at the end, this event sadly works out better for Martin Pêcheur, and an immigration maybe could have potentially hurt him here. And so at the end, probably the immigration would have turned out to be the better event to seed and to keep in hand after getting hit by the aggression. Martin Pêcheur will go for a very early copy of Oil. It's the first copy that is revealed, and he has probably enough science to support it, and with his civil actions and resource that he has saved up, he can actually go for 3 upgrades immediately, putting himself at 15 resource production. And then the only downside for him is that he has to disband a warrior in order to fix his uprising issue, but he is still the strongest, won't lose a yellow token to Catherine. And I was a bit threatened by this, because that looks really strong, and I was not just hoping that hopefully he won't get the mechanized agriculture soon, then at least he will have still one weakness, maybe some troubles of spending all of those resources. But if he gets the mechanized agriculture soon, he might just have a very strong position, and I will have to see how I will be able to handle this. However, at my turn I also have the chance to set up something similar, because also for me there's an early oil on the row, and I also end up taking it. And because I also think that will just give me a very nice boost. Of course, I have some strong resource production already. I don't maybe have as strong science production, not the most civil action. So there will be the question if I will find a nice way to invest the resource from the oil. But I have the railroad, and if I don't take it, E5 can maybe go for it with James Watt. James Watt is probably not too happy that both of those early copies of oil are immediately taken away just before him. And so I think I should go for the oil. I could maybe consider not developing it immediately and instead going for the civil service this turn, making sure that I go up to 8 civil actions, but investing science in the civil service and oil would also leave me quite low on science after having gone for both of those technologies. And while I've done a lot of civil actions to maybe use my resources, I might be missing the science, and I also would need to delay going for the oil if I take the civil service right now. And even though it would be very nice to not be stuck on 6 civil actions at the end, rather wanted to just get the oil upgrade going using the Scientific Cooperation Pact. I will go for one upgrade. My first instinct was to just go for a second upgrade immediately, getting out of corruption with that. But I think that might actually be overkill, because already now I'm at 15 resource production, and I have not the most science, not the most civil actions. I might already struggle a little bit to use my resource. I was still hoping that I will be able to use them, but I think in order to be able to use them, I have to play very carefully, very civil action effectively, and I think I don't really need any other upgrade. Maybe it could even be nice to be able to delete those iron mines at some point, and so instead I ended up increasing my population to get out of corruption. That means, for example, if a multimedia is on the road the next turn, I could just develop it, and then have already a free population to upgrade. It could potentially make a difference, because then I would still be able to do something else. And yeah, I just think it's more important to be civil action efficient here than to get another upgrade going, because I don't think it will make a big difference for me if I'm at 15 or 18 resource production, and the second upgrade would take 2 turns to pay off anyway, and I think having one more civil action is way more important. Of course, I also needed to consider if I maybe want to take the cavalryman, because of course I don't know yet if or when I will get the rockets, but with having the defensive army tactic and with there also being 2 copies of tanks, I just didn't want to spend a civil action, because again, I have to be very civil action efficient now to hopefully have a nice way to invest those resources from the oil. Then I keep the defensive army tactic in hand, draw my first impact of progress, which for now maybe could rather be nice. Could rather be nice to have the knowledge that it isn't in the deck, but who knows? Maybe I will also find a way to make it a bit more, a bit better for me. E5 seeds, and I was very happy to see the civil unrest actually revealed. I used Catherine at my turn because I didn't want to push any of the events that it had in hand, and because of that, E5 will actually lose now an additional 4 culture and a blue token to the civil unrest, which hurts him quite a bit, and also Martin Pêcheur will lose some culture, so I was very happy about this event that was seeded by one of my opponents. Maybe Martin Pêcheur seeded it because he maybe was just willing to lose the culture with doing this very strong oil turn. And that was quite nice, and E5 is now definitely quite a bit behind in culture, which could potentially be bad for him. He will go for the bread and circus this turn, so just now again will be prepared for the happy phases. Sadly will go for the civil service. I had maybe a small hope that it could still be available for me at the next turn, and especially if it would be a rev ID on that row as well, it could be quite nice still to go for it. But e5 will go for it, even though he had already the code of laws, maybe didn't want to leave it to me and to Martha Bashir. We both don't have any technology of the type yet, and then e5 takes a lot of yellow cards, and also the architecture, which could be an important card to have, because the engineering might be gone, and in order to go for the red cross, which could maybe be a nice plan for him, the architecture could turn out to be very important. Martha Bashir seeds, and a good harvest reveals even more food for everyone. I and e5 get the most out of it, Martha Bashir not that much, but sadly there is a solution for his food issues available in the row. He can go for the mechanized agriculture quite early, and I was definitely not happy to see it, because his position is definitely getting stronger. The only good thing for me is that thanks to the Eiffel Tower, I might be able to overtake him in culture production soon. But he might also go for an H3 leader soon, which maybe generates him some culture, and then he definitely still has a strong position, but at least they also have an oil mine going, have the better culture production for now, so that's definitely also not bad. Then Martha Bashir will go for the engineering, maybe doesn't want to leave it to me, maybe just wants to have it available for himself. If there's maybe impact of progress drawn by him, which won't be, because I have it in the hand. And also just it could still save some resources in civil actions at some point. And then it is my turn, and I see the refugees into the deck, because now there is actually a copy of rockets available for me very cheaply, and with having the defensive army tactic, I was hoping that I will be able to be the strongest for the refugees later on. So I seeded it into the deck. The event revealed is the prosperity that was seeded by me earlier on, and then I will go for the rockets, develop them, build one, increase my population, build another one, get out of corruption. I won't reveal the tactic yet, first of all to make sure that I will still draw 3 cards, second of all because it could be nice for Martha Bashir to copy this tactic at some point, so I didn't want to reveal this yet, maybe setting myself up to be quite threatening. And then the question is what to do with my remaining civil actions. If I would have enough to maybe take the space flight, I could maybe just do it, even though it's also not the biggest space flight. But the other wonders might not be as strong, but I really wanted to use both of those 3 military actions, get out of corruption, because maybe there could be a bit of military potential for me in the future. Of course I could also go for those blue techs, but at the moment I don't need both of them that much, and it would be a bit of an investment to go for them. And even though it is a bit costly, I at the end went for the revolutionary idea, because I think the additional science could maybe still turn out to be quite valuable for me, maybe allowing me for easily to go for air forces plus some other stuff. Maybe if this copy of movie is still in the row, I could at the next turn go for it and still have a somewhat reasonable amount of science left to not leave myself too vulnerable. So I think this position of science is just my bottleneck, and I was willing to pay that many civil actions for it. And here we can see that at a turn before, if I would have gone for one more upgrade, I couldn't have gone for this turn and grabbed the revolutionary idea, so it already makes a difference. But of course, that is also quite costly and could potentially backfire, so I could have also maybe just increased my population some more times. I know that the happy face related events are out, so that could also be fine, and especially if I don't need the science at the end. So now we have to see if that will be a good pick at the end. I discard the impact of progress, and I will now draw my first war. So now it could be that I can maybe do something with the defensive army and those rockets, especially if I should get air force. Also I have 2 more colonization cards, which I was happy about, because there is the inhabited territory coming, and it could also still be a nice colony for me, and with having that many colonization cards I maybe have now a nice chance to win it. And as you can see, the territory is actually revealed. I was willing, I think, to bid 1 rocket in all of my cards. I didn't want to bid 2 units. That was a bit too costly for me, but I was willing to bid the 1 rocket. But sadly, it's actually not enough at the end, and e5 is able to win it. But as you can see, he has to pay quite a big price for it. Sends 4 knights away and a colonization card. So an interesting choice by him, because he has food production and the ocean liner service. Has at least a wave to rebuild cheaply, but still it felt like definitely an interesting decision. Maybe just wanted to deny it from me and Martha Bashir. A very interesting decision to be willing to bid that much for that. But now he will just go for Gandhi, making him a bit safer. Maybe making it that he doesn't have to be concerned that much about the military. Then he will increase his population a bunch of times, develops the architecture. Maybe it will be a bit easier for him now to set up for the Red Cross with having now a bigger yellow bank again. He will also build 1 additional lab to get more science production, an additional theater to go up to 5 culture production, and then takes the reserves. Is probably a bit in danger of an aggression. because he has sent some colonization cards already for some colonies and to defend against an aggression from Mata Bashir earlier on. So he could get punished, but of course he has also Gandhi, and while I could try the armed interventions against him, it would cost me all of my draws, which I might not be willing to do. So with Gandhi he might be somewhat safe now. Mata Bashir goes for Pierre for 3, he doesn't have an arena yet, but he might go for one, but before doing that he will go for the communism revolution with Robespierre, getting 3 additional culture, having now a lot of more military actions, making it that he could still also maybe go for a war against e5 if e5 isn't careful, and then he needs to fix his happy faces, will do that with going for the bro spots. He needed a happy face solution anyway, and will now go for Pierre for at least 2 additional culture production, the ability to go for the Olympic Games, and of course he has a lot of food, so just building a lot of pro sports might prepare him nicely for some impacts, and also of course going a lot of culture with Pierre. I sadly don't have any nice impacts in hand yet, but still wanted to push because I'm the strongest and just generating some culture could be nice, and so I ended up pushing the wealthy territory too, because I still have a lot of colonization cards. I don't really need the resources, but I just wanted to push, and maybe it could still be fine to win it at the end. The freedom of movement is revealed, which I had to think about how I want to use it. It was a little bit awkward. Because I will now use it to put a mine into the rockets. But it is a bit awkward because when I increase now my population 2 times and maybe build even another unit, let's maybe take a look at this turn. I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, but it was a bit awkward because if I put it into rifleman, the turn how I wanted to play it works out. But if I put it into rockets, even though I spend 2 more resources because of the way how my blue tokens are aligned, spending 2 more resources actually leaves me with corruption, while spending 2 less resources would get me out of corruption, which is a bit awkward, and I didn't want to put it into another rifleman because putting into more rockets is just, I think, nicer in case I draw a strong H3 tactic, which could be quite strong with having this war culture in hand, so I didn't necessarily want to build another rifleman, which of course could mean that I maybe can send it away for a colony, but at the end I put it into a rocket. Could maybe be also fine to not use it at all, maybe put it into a theology. So no, I'm was not too happy about this. I could also put it into the alchemy, so definitely some different options, but I have this war in hand. I will now be able to get the Air Force, and I was hoping that maybe, even though there might be Olympic Games ongoing at some point, I was hoping that maybe I can try something with going for a war. So I will take the Air Forces, will also take the movies. Marlene Dietrich is coming down the road. She could help me with the military, but also, of course, generate me some culture with having the movies. There's also Chaplain, and I wanted to have a way to also peacefully generate some culture in case the war will not work out. So I wanted to have the movies, and then I will increase my population 2 times, and then I could, I think, now build 1 additional unit to get out of corruption, but I didn't want to commit the population yet. I don't know yet if I will draw a tactic, if I really want to go for a lot of military, and to corruption at the end is also not too bad, so it's of course would maybe still be nicer to not have corruption, but I have that many resources that maybe doesn't matter. Maybe I could have just kept a mine, maybe put the work into theology. Yeah, maybe it could actually be nice to put it into theology. I mean, the reason why I just thought it could be nice is because building unit only costs me military action, and saving a civil action could be quite more important. I might need to build a theology anyway at some point, but of course if I go for Marlene Dietrich or Chaplain, I might actually not need any theology, and it could be nicer to have all of the population available to maybe put them into movies and maybe also the units. So it was a bit of a tricky decision. Putting it into alchemy could also be very fine. At the end I wanted to be a bit more threatening, maybe have already another unit available now that I have the air forces, but I was not too sure how I should use this freedom of movement, but I thought I don't really need all of those mines and can maybe now use the freedom of movement to get something else for free without having to spend any military or civil action. I draw another colonization, got also the impact of strength and the international tourism. The international tourism, though, is not ideal for me because I have the most wonders, so I would give one of my opponents additional culture production, which could maybe be fine because e5 is maybe a little bit behind, so maybe I could use it to catch up some points to Mata Bashir, but it would also mean that the scientific operation is cancelled, so not I have to see if I actually want to offer the pact. E5 is willing to take the tanks for expensive. He knows that especially Martin Pêcheur, who has now a lot of military actions, could still be threatening for him, so he still makes sure to defend himself. Uses the frugality, goes for theater, goes for one more upgrade to get out of corruption, and then takes the reserves. And with having the reserves, that many civil actions and the architecture, he is prepared to just take the red cross, play reserves for food, and then just finish it to then maybe be in the running again and having closed the culture gap somewhat. Now it's Martin Pêcheur's turn. He will cede. I was hoping, of course, that the refugees are now maybe being revealed before maybe one of my opponents will get stronger. Sadly, those are not revealed, but the strategic territory, which is an interesting territory, probably more interesting for me than the wealthy territory that I've seeded into the deck. So I think I was willing to at least bid one rocket in all of my cards, maybe even 2 units. Because drawing a potentially strong tactic could be very interesting, but I'm not sure if I was willing to bid 2 units, maybe only 1, but I have a lot of colonization cards and at the end I am able to win it for 1 drive man, and of course I was very excited to see what cards I have drawn. And the cards that I've drawn are actually quite interesting. First of all, an impact that I can see, the impact of wonders, but then there is the entrenchments tactic, and with me now being at 3 rockets and 3 riflemen, that could really pose a lot of potential for me, and could potentially allow me to go for quite a big war. Martin Pêcheur goes for the cannons now, builds one, builds another one, takes the reserves and the military theory, so sadly takes the second copy away from me. Maybe just wants to go for a hate draft here. Maybe he wants to take it away from me, doesn't want to maybe allow me to potentially go for against e5, and also of course to be less threatening against him, but maybe also still wants to keep it in hand to potentially himself go maybe for something against e5 in case he gets the right cards. So there could be multiple reasons to go for this military theory, and then his last civil action is to go for another food upgrade to have even more food production going. And this turn was now actually quite tricky, and I needed quite a bit of time to solve it. And I'm not sure if I actually did solve it in a nice way, but no. With having the entrenchments tactic, a war, and also a hybrid war, but that might be a bit tricky to pull off, and I should have enough military actions to go for a normal war. I, of course, really wanted to set myself up for going for a big war. First of all, I see the impact of strength into the deck, which could potentially be a mistake, because while it is at the moment looking like I can go for a lot of strength and this impact will be nice, it could still be a bit swingy. Martin Pêcheur has that many resources available if he just gets the second copy of Modern Infantry and upgrades a lot, and maybe copies the tactic that I will reveal at some point. He could get stronger also with building some arenas, so maybe I should be a bit more careful here, rather see the impact of wonders on one hand. On the other hand, I really was hoping to maybe go for a big war, and then I might not have that many politics action left when I go for war, and then maybe also could go for the armed interventions, so I could maybe see the impact of wonders instead, which would be a fine impact for me, but not as strong as the impact of strength, and I was hoping that I will get enough strength. However, here I also pushed, and then after pushing changed my plans a little bit again, and because when I pushed I really thought that I really want to set up for a big war the next turn, because the thing is I can go for Marlene Dietrich, I can build some rockets and air forces, and I can, even without revealing the tactic, which is important because I have knowledge about defensive army, have knowledge about entrenchments. Martin Pêcheur could of course have the fortifications, he could have the positional army, but he could also have no tactic, and I might be able to go for 112 strength at the next turn. If I go for building a lot of units and prepare for that, and then yeah, that could be quite a big war. Of course, I might have to declare this war against the Olympic Games, and it could be that Martin Pêcheur has the positional army, in which case the war would not be too big, but I would probably still win it, and there is just a chance that Martin Pêcheur doesn't have a nice tactic to work with, which could make the war quite strong for me. So I kind of really wanted to make this war possible, but there is big issue with it, and that is that even though there are still 15 cards in the deck, it is definitely not certain that the H will continue for an H3 will continue for an additional turn, and then that I can declare the war at my next turn. And now, so if my first idea was to build some units, take Marlene Dietrich, also build a theology, and then I have 1 civil action left, and I can take the patriotism. And that would be a very clean turn, and if I would be able to go for war, it would just all work very nicely. But then I take one card from the row, and the cards that would be available for 1 civil actions to take and are not on the discard spot for e5 would be Pro Sports, Endowment for the Arts, and Urban Growth, all cards that he might want to take anyway. So even if he isn't actively trying to end the age, it could still be nice for him to just take all of those cards. And he has a lot of civil actions, so he could just take one more card, and then he has already taken 4 cards from non-discard spots, meaning after his turn there would be 6 cards left, and 6 cards is just the amount that Mata Bashir, in which case Mata Bashir would be able to end the age. He can develop the justice system. Then he has still 7 civil actions left, but 8 hand space. So actually he has also the library, so he has even an additional hand space. But I think if I remember it correctly, he can end the age if there are 6 cards on the row. And that could just happen. So even if e5 isn't actively trying to end the game, it could still happen that the game ends. And it could be that maybe e5 is interested in the game to continuing, because me going for a really big war against Mata Bashir could be a way for him to finish at the 2nd position, which maybe could be a fine outcome for him, considering that he is quite a bit behind, doesn't know maybe whether he gets the red cross, so it could be a nice hope for him. And maybe if I sacrifice a little bit to go for this one, at the end Mata Bashir has the tactic to defend himself. Who knows? Maybe it will cost me and Mata Bashir that much that he could even have chances to win the game if he gets the red cross. So maybe he could even try to prolong the game, but I just don't know it. I just don't know what his plans might be, what his best hopes might be. He also probably will have a lot of different options. So I thought about not taking the patriotism, in which case, in case I don't want to reveal the tactic in order to hopefully go for a really big war, I need to spend 1 more military action already this turn, and that would mean that I have to destroy 1 mine and build even another unit. But the problem is, even with not taking the patriotism, then it's a bit more likely that the age won't end. But if e5 is maybe trying to make it possible that the age will end, which I'm not sure if he would be willing to do it, I was hoping that maybe he wouldn't like to do this, but he could do it, and then the age could end. And with me developing air forces this turn, the scientific cooperation pact being then ended because age 4 would start, me having destroyed a mine and me then missing enough science to go for the movies, it could really turn out to be really bad for me, and that would just be a very big risk to take. So I was really hoping that maybe e5 in such a scenario wouldn't like to make sure that the game will end 1 turn earlier, because maybe a big war against Mata Bashir would be a big hope for him, but I don't know it, and it could really backfire a lot, and my position is maybe not that bad at the moment that I have to take such a big risk. And so at the end I actually went for a turn where I can't go for as big of a war. I will also reveal the tactic, but I am still threatening, and I also will be prepared to maybe generate some peaceful culture. And so I went for a bit of a more conservative play at the end, just because sadly I don't know whether the age will continue or not. If I would have certain knowledge about this, I think just setting up for a big war and not revealing the tactic, hopefully making it that I can go for a big war against Mata Bashir would be the way to go. But sadly in this case I think it could just also backfire quite heavily, and instead I first of all ceded the impact of strength, which now could maybe more likely backfire now that because this change of plans I'm sadly made after I've already committed to ceding, because I also kind of wanted to first see what event is revealed. Of course I should ideally have already my plans figured out, but it can of course sometimes happen that that you realize that maybe you have to change your plans again. And I hope there is still a good chance that I will win the impact of strength at the end. I will not bid for the wealthy territory, I rather want to keep the population. The end e5 is able to win it for 1 tank at least, so it doesn't really generate him that many additional resources, especially if we will rebuild the tank. And now I will go for Marlene Dietrich, I will go for the Empire State Building. Revealing the tactic will just make it that I am the strongest, and with that I can at least finish the Empire State Building for 16 points. And I'm still somewhat threatening at least, because at the next turn I can, or first of all I will still build some units this turn, now I'm a bit threatening, because if I elect Marlene Dietrich here the next turn, I will be at 70 strength, and I have this hybrid war, meaning if e5 maybe commits a lot of resources, especially because I thought that now that I didn't develop the air forces, leaving him with 7 instead of 6 signs, he can go for the multimedia, maybe will overcommit some resources, because yeah, maybe he has to take some risks, especially if the red cross is not revealed. But of course he has to also be careful from a war from Montapicheur. Yeah. With that, maybe he won't go for the multimedia, but if he overcommits, I could go for a hybrid war and go up to 70 strength, probably against the Olympic Games, but if he isn't careful, it could still be an ideal, and I could also go for a normal war and for 2 air forces, which would put me at 98 strength, which is definitely a threatening amount, but I was thinking that maybe it could not be enough, unless maybe I have a chance to take the modern infantry away, because then Montapicheur maybe doesn't have that much of a strength potential. That could be interesting, but if I can't take the modern infantry away, then he can't develop it at the next turn, but if he can just take it, he can maybe build some cannons at the next turn, go for a lot of upgrades, copy the entrenchments tactic in 2 turns, and then he can also go at least up to something like 90 strength, maybe even more, if he really maybe is also willing to destroy a little bit, or prepare really nicely for the war. And then with the Olympic Games, it might not be enough to go for a war, but at least there's a chance that I can go for a war against Montapicheur, against e5, and if I can't go for war, at least I have enough science for movies, I can go for more culture production, have the impact of wonders in hand that I can see it, and also the impact of strength, which hopefully will score me some culture. And now I have a bit of a culture lead with having gone for the Empire State Building, so I was at the end thinking that maybe the conservative play is just the best, because if I go all in into military preparation, I could just get heavily punished if the age will end before my next turn. I will keep hybrid war, war over culture, impact of wonders in the aggression, and I was very happy to see that I also draw the impact of culture, because with having movies Marlene Dietrich, there is definitely a good chance that I could maybe go for this impact. And then again, there was a very interesting decision to make, because there's actually the peace treaty offered by e5 to me. And as you can see, I will actually reject it, and I am again not really certain if that is the correct decision or not. e5 would get an additional culture out of me, but I would gain some culture to Montapicheur, and maybe that could be more important, because Montapicheur will probably be the bigger contender for the first place, but if e5 gets the red cross, he could also still be threatening, and it could at least be nice to have the option to go for this hybrid war against him in case he isn't too careful with his military preparation. Of course, he also needs to be afraid of Montapicheur, but maybe could play it a bit more risky this turn and only set up at the next turn, because this turn Montapicheur can't go for a lot. Maybe he is willing to take the risk with the hybrid war, but of course now that they rejected a peace treaty, he's maybe more likely to set up a bit of defense, which at least means that he can't easily just build a lot of multimedias, has to be a bit careful. Maybe I could have also just accepted it, get some culture against Montapicheur, but then e5 maybe can get a bit more culture with playing it a bit more greedily. Also gets 1 additional culture against me, and it is definitely not completely out of question that e5 can still finish before me if he gets the red cross, and maybe has also some nice impacts for himself. So at the end I rejected the pact, but I was not really certain if I maybe should accept it just to get a little bit of culture against Montapicheur. e5 will take the Manhattan project, the Bro Sports, develops the Bro Sports, goes for an upgrade, builds 1 tank, upgrades 1 tank, is now 30. 6 strength has the Manhattan project, the Endowment takes the Endowment, the Urban Growth, so takes a lot of cards, meaning that Montapicheur probably has the ability to NDH. However, it is maybe a bit more difficult for him, because the card that was revealed after the Air Force is Steve Jobs, so there are 2 cards in the row for 1 civil action that he can't really take. And so let's take a look again at whether he actually can NDH or not. He can develop the justice system. With that, he has definitely enough hand space together with the library, would have enough hand space for 4 more cards. He has 7 civil actions, so he could potentially just take air forces and then 3 more cards from a row, so he could just end the age. Now the question is he willing to do this, or is he not willing to do this? First of all, he declares to Olympic Games. Sadly, the modern infantry is available for him, so he won't be able to deny it. e5 maybe could have denied it, just hoping that I will go for war against Montapicheur, but it is probably a bit of a stretch, and it's probably more important for him to just set up something useful for himself. the refugees are revealed, and I'm able to win it, which is nice. I was kind of hoping that maybe it could be revealed at a point where Mata Bashir is the weakest, but I was definitely still happy that I was able to win it. Also, e5 went for the Manhattan Project, but he is still nicely prepared for the Red Cross. He has enough food for it, and he has just enough civil actions. Even if it is available for 3 civil on the 3 civil action area, I can, thanks to the architecture, in 1 civil action finish the Manhattan Project, take the Red Cross, and finish that as well. And the Red Cross was revealed on Mata Bashir's turn. Maybe Mata Bashir couldn't easily take it, because then he could leave himself vulnerable to a war. But now Mata Bashir doesn't have the option to take it anyway. He plays the reserves, increases population, goes for 1 bro spots, increases population 2 more times, goes for 2 rockets, doesn't reveal the fortifications tactic. Also not a positional army, maybe indicating that he doesn't have such a tactic, but of course he knows now about the entrenchments tactic, and at the next turn can go for a bunch of upgrades, maybe 2 more cannons, copy the tactic, and with that he would be able to go over 90 strength. I don't remember the exact number, but with the Olympic Games ongoing, and with me not being able to go for the movies that easily, and also having to do maybe some destruction. I actually don't have to do destruction thanks to the refugees, but at the end I was not willing to declare this war through the Olympic Games, and also e5. I could maybe steal a little bit of culture against him with the hybrid war, but he has set himself up nicely, has a lot of resource available, can finish the Manhattan Project and still build a bunch of tanks. And with that, I was not willing to go for any war, even though, of course, against e5, maybe it could be interesting, because it could be that he just wants to finish the Red Cross. But if he does this, he will finish the Manhattan Project anyway, meaning he will be at 49 strength. I mean, I will be at 70, but to finish before Mata Bashir, can't counter culture swing against e5, and the thing is, he has the ocean liner service, so even though he doesn't have a free population at the moment, even if he finishes the Manhattan Project, takes the Red Cross, he still can get 1 more population out and can build 1 more tank, so he would not only beat 49, he would beat 54 strength, so I would steal 16 culture from him, but there are the Olympic Games ongoing, so I would basically only get 8 culture from him. It would be a nice swing against him, maybe making sure that I definitely finish before him, but I have some interesting impacts in hand, and also but it maybe could still be interesting to go for the hybrid war, but there is of course also the chance that e5 maybe just leaves the Red Cross and just goes all in to defend the war, and at the end that's not a risk willing to take when the gain is only maybe slightly more than just seeding Impact of Wonders. And also I could maybe also seed Impact of Culture and still hope for a better impact. I didn't do it at the end because there actually are not that many impacts for me that are really nice, so I rather wanted to see the Impact of Wonders first, because sadly there's 1 copy of Multimedia left in the deck, and if Mata Bashir will go for this copy of Multimedia, he maybe could still, if he really invests everything into culture reduction, overtake me for the Impact of Culture, so I kind of wanted to see what he will do at the next turn before deciding on the Impact of Culture, and with not there being really a lot of impacts that I can really hope for. I just started with seeding the Impact of Wonders this turn. Sadly, there's the Iconoclasm revealed, and that of course could have also really disrupted my war plans if that would be revealed instead of the refugees. So not only the ending of the age, also something like an Iconoclasm could have been really backfiring in case I went all in on war preparation. Now I will lose Catherine, it's still a bit annoying, but it doesn't make the biggest difference, because I think the additional civil action doesn't make the biggest difference at the end. I will just go for 1 movie this turn and elect Marlene Dietrich. I will build an an H8 religion instead of the theology here. First instinct was to build a theology, but at the next turn, if I build a theology, I have only enough to build 1 more movie, but not really anything else. Now at the next turn I can go for 1 more movie and, for example, 1 more religion, or something else in case I think it is more better for impact preparation, for example a farm or something, and then I will increase my population and take the fission upgrade. That could allow me to either upgrade a religion to theology, or in case I will end up building a farm, which could be nice for some impacts, I can upgrade this farm to selective breeding with the efficient upgrade. Also, I kind of wanted to take 1 card from a row, because that means that first of all e5 doesn't draw any more cards, but a more important thing is that he is guaranteed able to get the Red Cross, which is of course nice for him, but he has now lost some culture for the refugees, will lose to the Impact of Strength hopefully, and the Impact of Culture, basically guaranteed, because He won't grab the multimedia for 3 because he needs to go for the red cross. And with that I was hoping that even if he gets the red cross I have very good chances to finish before him. And with that I just wanted to make sure that there isn't a small chance that the red cross is the last card in the deck and that Marta Becher could still go for it. So I really wanted to end the H here. I get one more draw going. Sadly not anything useful, but I have the impact of culture, so and I don't think there's anything else that maybe would be better for me. Then e5 will seed. The event revealed is the impact of industry. All of the players have a lot of resource production, but Marta Becher gets the most out of it. e5 will then finish the Manhattan project. The red cross is in a row. He will use the ocean liner service, takes the red cross, finishes the red cross, and is also willing to build one tank, making it that he is not the weakest and maybe also a bit safer from a potential aggression, even though I have only 4 military actions, I could only go for blunder against him. At this point Marta Becher is actually the weakest and he will push, and I was really hoping that maybe the impact of strength would be revealed now to get a really big swing against him, because this turn he might get stronger, and depending on what impacts he has, it could even be that he gets quite a bit stronger. I was hoping that maybe he goes for the multimedia, which is of course also not great for me. It also is a strong option for him, but at least he would not maybe get stronger. Sadly there's no impact of strength, but at least also an impact that is not bad for me to see. I mean, on one hand it's bad because it's not a great impact, but now that it's in the deck it is at least nice that it is revealed now, because I won't go for any more technology at my next turn, while Marta Becher might even go for 3 more until his next turn, so if that would be deeper into the deck, it could have gotten a lot more points for Marta Becher. So no impact of strength, but at least another impact where it is maybe nice to see it revealed. But sadly, as you can see, Marta Becher is not going for the multimedia, and he has a lot of resources, will now just go for a lot of upgrades, up to 66 strength with copying the tactic. He is now at 78, and sadly now my impact of strength might backfire a little bit, especially now he's even at 82 with going for another bro sports. Goes for patriotism, the revolutionary, and of course will go for the multimedia to maybe be able to go for it at the next turn. And that of course wasn't really great for me to see. Now one potentially nice impact will actually backfire a bit against me. At least I still have a bit of a culture lead. Of course Marta Becher will get this production, but I will be 11 culture in the lead, and I have the impact of culture and the impact of wonders. But there are also some impacts that are bad for me, and I was also thinking with Marta Becher being willing to go for that many upgrades, costing him the potential to maybe build a lot of multimedias at the next turn, it could really be that there's maybe impact of competition in there, which could potentially be a very strong impact for him. At my turn I will go for the impact of culture. I think I just have to go for this. And I will see it. I was still hoping for the impact of strength, because there is a chance now that Marta Becher went for that much strength that e5 is maybe an alert about the impact of strength and will get stronger than me during his turn. But there is no impact of strength revealed yet. Instead the impact of wonders, which gives me the most points and gives me 4 points against Marta Becher. And then this turn I will go for one movie. I was thinking about maybe building some units, because there might be the impact of competition in there, but the movie just still gives me more culture. It would also of course make it that I maybe have better chances for being stronger than e5, but at the end I just kind of need to hope maybe that I can get a culture from the theater, and also this sets me up for some other impacts like happiness, architecture, and also harmony, because I will actually build an additional farm this turn. And I maybe just have to hope that e5 doesn't get stronger, or that he maybe pushes the impact of strength out of the deck before his turn. So I go for one movie, and then I could now build an additional religion and maybe use the efficient upgrade to upgrade one to theology, and it would give me one safe culture, but I don't need the additional culture reduction to be safe for the impact of culture. Marta Becher could actually still go for a reasonable amount if he develops engineering and multimedia. He has enough resource to build 1 bro sports and 2 multimedias, but that would still not be enough, even if the peace treaty that e5 has is offered, and I have knowledge about the international tourism, so I don't need it for the impact of culture. And so I even though I miss out on one safe culture, I think it's better to build this farm, upgrade it with the efficient upgrade, and then I still have enough resource to upgrade also this one, so it doesn't change anything for the impact of architecture, and then just prepares me better for the impact of harmony and the impact of agriculture. So at the end I was willing to miss out on the one safe culture just to at least be a bit better prepared for some of the impacts. And then with my last civil action I just take the fundamentalism, but there isn't anything useful to do now. Now I was hoping that hopefully e5 won't get stronger, or that the impact of strength is pushed out. He doesn't cede, so it isn't pushed out. Him not ceding could be nice for me, because it might be that the impact is not really great for me, as I don't have that many nice impacts. At least I have knowledge that impact of progress is out, which would be a very bad impact for me. e5 plays a lot of reserves for food and for resources, can get another population out, and sadly, as you can see, he will build a tank, will build an arena, destroying one mine now that the impact of industry is out, and will go for another tank and upgrades another arena. Is now at 76 strength, meaning that impact of strength sadly has backfired quite heavily now for me, which is quite annoying. And Martin Becher will cede, opens the impact of strength, so sadly that will give me 0 culture now, but it was a bit of a risk, and I made a change of plans after I've seeded it, which was not ideal. But sadly, instead of going for something like multimedia, Martin Becher went for the strength push, maybe with that also giving some some incentive for e5 to push more strength. And with that I get sadly only 0 points out of this impact. Martin Becher will then go for one arena, and he will just, as you can see, build even more units, and with that it should be very clear that there is actually the impact of competition in the deck, and that is a very big impact for him, so I was quite afraid of it, and I was not too confident about my chances now, but at least I'm still in the lead, and I still have the impact of culture against Martin Becher, so there's definitely still hope, but I need some not too bad impacts apart from the impact of competition, or maybe hope that the impact of competition actually is not in the game, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. The first one is at least the impact of happiness, so a neutral impact, which is probably good news for me. There is the impact of variety, which is not ideal, but also not the worst impact, but I get -4 against both of my opponents. Then there is the impact of competition indeed, and that is very strong for Martin Becher, getting 44 points out of it, with that being able to overtake me. e5 then gets +30 out of it, so also more than me, and is also getting a bit closer for me, but at least I have the knowledge that there is also still the impact of culture coming, making it that there is not really any danger that e5 will overtake me, but sadly with the big impact of competition, now I need an impact that would give me +11 or +12 against Martin Becher, and I don't think there is any such impact. And in the last impact is the impact of architecture, and with that at the end Martin Becher is able to win this game. I finish at the second position, and e5 will at the end lose this game. Now at the end not the ideal outcome, but I mean Martin Becher had a very solid position for quite a while, especially after the event for the Republic Revolution with Robespierre. Had a great wall, got a lot of value out of Sun Tzu with being able to push those strength events and then being able to win them. There was maybe the hope that he could get some issues if the food production is delayed by a bit, but sadly the mechanized agriculture was available relatively early, fixing his last big weakness. Even without it, maybe he could have somehow done something fine, but because the prosperity was revealed, the good harvest was revealed, so he had some additional population, but of course that was still quite helpful, allowed him to build a lot of units, and with that he has just this very strong position. Nonetheless, I really had some hopes shortly before the end withdrawing that entrenchments tactic, especially because I thought I can maybe pull off a big war, but sadly there was the very big uncertainty on whether the game will end, and also we saw the iconoclasm, which could have disrupted my war plans potentially. And with that I was not willing to take the risk to set up completely for war. Maybe it could have worked out at the end, maybe e5 wouldn't have tried to end the game, but it could have backfired quite heavily, and so I went for a more conservative play, which sadly at the end wasn't enough. Maybe I needed a bit of luck with the impact of strength timing at the end, because I could have gotten +14 against Martin Becher if that would have been revealed at this one moment. Now I got -14 against him, so that is quite a big swing, but there was at least the impact of tech revealed, which maybe also would have been better for my opponents afterwards, but that was maybe the way how it could have still gone in a nice direction. But sadly with having the impact of competition, Martin Becher was not really interested in investing into multimedia, how I maybe expected it for his turn, and instead just build a lot of competition, and with that also by the way along the way prepared for the impact of strength, which at the end sadly meant that I just didn't have enough points in the impacts to catch up to him. Now, so at the end Martin Becher is able to win it, well played by him, and now that this game is finished we can also take a quick look at the standings, and also look at some games that are finished where I wasn't involved, because there have been quite a lot of games finished, and also Of course, as you probably maybe have already seen it, PV4, who is also playing the finals, didn't participate in this game, but in a lot of other games, is also making videos to all of his games and has already published a lot of them. So if you didn't check out those games yet and maybe don't want to get spoiled for the results, then maybe don't continue watching now. And I will also again put a link to the description and the description of the video where you can find his channel. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. And if you have maybe already seen those videos, or if you maybe don't have an issue with getting spoiled, then we can now take a look at the standings and also take a look at some games that are finished where I wasn't involved. And first we can maybe take a look at those games where I wasn't involved. We have a bit down below you see the two 4-player games that you've seen already on the channel, and then you see some 2-player games that are finished between my opponents, and we can see that PV4 was able to win against E5 in a very close game. I actually watched this one on his channel, and he was a bit unlucky with his impact draws, so maybe it wasn't as close as it looks, but it definitely was very close. But I think that one would have been a bit unfortunate for him to lose, with his opponents having had seeded 5 impacts and he himself not getting any impact. Then there was another 2-player game where PV4 was able to win against Marta Bashir, and Marta Bashir won against E5, and now of course also won the 3-player game that we just saw at the moment. And now with all of these games finished, we can now take a look at the current standings. And we can see that Marta Bashir, with being able to at least win one of the 2-player games and also the 3-player game now, is now in quite a nice position, has 6 games finished, already 20 points, but PV4 is also still in the running, has 13 points, but 1 less game finished. So if he gets some nice results going the last 3 games, he also is still in a very nice position to fight for the title. And for E5, even if he wins his last 2 remaining games, for him it won't be enough any longer to win, so he has now to play for maybe the silver or bronze medal. For me, there's still everything possible because I have relatively few games finished. And I'm at 4 points at the moment, which is definitely not ideal. It could have been very important to maybe get this win against Marta Bashir, making it that he has less points and that I would already be at 7. Now there's quite a gap between us, but I have some games still to come, and if I get some nice results in them, there is still the chance that I can win the title. So I hope you're excited to see those games. And I also hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. And then thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.